Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. The Tea Party movement has become one of the most influential grassroots movements in the history of U.S. politics, but what role will it play in the future of the American political landscape? Joining me to talk about it is former House Majority Leader Dick Armey. He is also the current chairman of FreedomWorks. Matt Kibbe is also with us, and he's CEO of FreedomWorks. They are the co-authors of a brand new book, Give Us Liberty, a Tea Party Manifesto. Congratulations on the book to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome back to Newsmax.
That's nice to be back.
Much has been written about the Tea Party movement, some good, some bad. So let's set the record straight. How do you, Leader Armey, define the Tea Party as a movement and as a group?
It is a movement. It's 1 million or more American citizens that have looked at their country and they've said, look, the only thing that's big enough to destroy this country is our government. Our government is out of control, gotten careless with respect to its duties, and it's time for us to reemerge and assert the cause of liberty in the face of this presumptive government.
Well, the book outlines the Tea Party's history, and in it you claim that the movement will overtake the GOP, Congress, and ultimately the U.S. Elaborate, if you will, on what you mean by overtake.
Well, the Republican Party has historically off and on been a party that's really served the cause of liberty and constitutionally limited small government well. But it tends to backslide into being sort of an echo chamber for the Democrat Party. And this movement is very practical. They understand if we were to go out and create a third party, all we would do is just throw all the marbles to the Democrats, and the Democrats are, quite frankly, malevolently careless with our liberties. So what we have to do is reform the Republican Party, make it that force that beats the Democrat Party, and then cause it, while in office, to continue serving the cause of liberty. And I think one of the things that the left is really hoping for is these folks are going to be incompetent and naive and form a third party, and that's not going to happen.
Well, Matt, FreedomWorks says that it fights for lower taxes, less government, and more economic freedom. If President Obama's policies are not always in line with the Constitution and the will of the people, is he then, in your opinion, un-American?
Well, I think he's wrong. And it's more important to understand that people are judging him based on his policies, not on him as a person, not on him as a Democrat. And I think what animates the Tea Party and makes it better than a political party is that it's based on ideas and it's leaderless. We got people from all walks of life, all communities across America, and they're willing to challenge not just President Obama, but they were willing to challenge President Bush when he was wrong.
Leader, many Americans right now are concerned about the proposed mosque at Ground Zero. What is your take on this situation? And with the Constitution as our guide, what do you envision as the American resolution to this situation?
Well, obviously, everybody under the Constitution has their rights, but I like to point out that just because you have the right to do something doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And in my estimation, given the clear will as demonstrated by the American people, the folks that would have this mosque in this location, in deference to their own stated objectives for the mosque, ought to say, we will move it. I think if they insist on their right to build it where America doesn't want it, they're going to find out it'll turn out to be an unhappy experience for themselves and for others. Anytime you force the issue, you usually end up with an unhappy outcome.
You are soundly against its construction?
I think it's ill-advised to, again, why would you insist on putting a mosque where, in fact, the clear majority of the American people say this offends us? You know, in this country today, there's no quicker way in the world than get in trouble than to do something that might offend somebody. But the fact of the matter, in this case, there's going to be a reaction to it, and these folks could further their own stated purposes.
Matt, there have been a number of ads that have been critical of the construction of this mosque. What role does the Tea Party play in the debate, and what role does FreedomWorks play?
Well, it's not an issue that falls within FreedomWorks' agenda, and I think, generally speaking, this isn't a Tea Party issue. This is a debate about whether or not the stated goals of reconciliation and healing can be accomplished this way. Frankly, I don't think the government should get involved. I think it's a question of what is the opinion of the people.
As House Leader, Mr. Armey, you were one of the authors of the Contract with America in the 90s and helped oversee the Republican Revolution. How is the GOP handling the issues of immigration reform and health care?
Well, one of the things that we saw in 94, in fact in 94 I wrote an article called Freedom's Choir. It said that those of us who love the Constitution and constitutional limited power do best when we're fighting against the growth of the state. The GOP in office in recent years has fallen into the habit of expanding the size and role and scope of the state in pursuit of objectives while they fail in essential tasks. So while they've mishandled their duty, their legitimate necessary duty of maintaining our borders, they have at the same time extended their duties into areas that probably they should have had enough sense of self-restraint to stay out of in the first place. So what we look at is we not only want to reduce the size of government, which we think is urgently needed, but rationalize it by way of getting it more clearly focused on doing its necessary duties with some degree of efficiency.
You have long been an advocate of lower taxes. What happens if those Bush tax cuts are not renewed?
Well, obviously, I mean, we've seen this so many times, history proves it's going to have a further adverse effect on the economy. But the most fundamentally large impact on the economy today is the size of the government, the threat that the government poses that causes $2 trillion of private capital to sit on the sidelines. You want to stimulate the economy? Give the private sector of the economy a signal the government will not take away your profits and will not regulate your behavior, so feel free to invest. That's a better stimulus than you can ever get from the government.
The U.S. is pulling out the last of our combat troops in Iraq and stepping up efforts in Afghanistan. Is President Obama on the right track here?
I don't really quite, and I'm not enough of a military expert to know the answer to these questions. That doesn't bother me a whole lot because I'm not the president. What bothers me is I'm very fearful that the president doesn't understand it any better than I do.
Matt, the midterms are upon us. Talk to us about some of the issues or the candidates that we haven't discussed that FreedomWorks is pushing right now.
Well, there's been a real wave of Tea Party victories in the Republican primaries where you've seen tax and spend Republicans being replaced by real fiscal conservatives. And that, to me, suggests that there's going to be not just a lot of Republican victories on November 2nd, but a real shift in the center of gravity and the focus of this new majority. I happen to think that the Republicans are going to pick up at least the House and maybe the Senate.
Leader, you're one of the faces of the Tea Party movement, as is Sarah Palin, but both of you deny being its leaders, so to speak. If you both aren't leading it, then who is? Well,
this is the beauty of it. It is a leaderless movement. That's why we call it a grassroots movement. That baffles the left, because there's a George Soros type character sitting there with $1 billion checkbook, but there's not. And so the fact of the matter is this Tea Party movement, these folks who put the ideas of liberty, the Constitution of the United States, free markets ahead of other forms of public meddling by powerful governments, they have a handful of people that they've come to trust and respect. I think it's clear Sarah Palin's one of them. Certainly Jim DeMint is probably the office holder of greatest respect. I think they have a great deal of appreciation for FreedomWorks, and in that, you know, I like to believe that they like me a little bit too, but there's no doubt how they feel about these folks, and it's because they've stayed consistently loyal to the set of principles and ideas that are governing all of our motives in this big, broad-based grassroots war against big government in this country.
Let's talk about possible candidates for Republicans in 2012. Do you see Sarah Palin as making a bid for the presidential office? And if so, what kind of qualities do you think she'd bring to the table?
Well, Matt knows this field better than I. I don't know whether she will, only she would know that. But I'll tell you the quality that is attractive about Sarah Palin. She's authentic. And especially the Tea Party folks on that. She is who she is, and she got there on her own terms. I always look at Sarah Palin and I say, you know, she is in fact who Hillary Clinton pretends to be. She is a person who made it on her own terms, whatever position in life she made, not because she's somebody's wife, not because she's somebody's daughter, but on her own terms by her own initiative, and that's what we like.
Would you like to see her run in 2012?
I'd like to see a whole new field of candidates run, and I kind of view this Tea Party stage that all of these activists have built as creating a platform for a whole new generation of leaders. And I think what you're going to see is a lot of names, a lot of exciting, young, energetic fiscal conservatives who are going to step up on that stage.
Who do you think those people may be?
Well, look at some of the governors, like Mitch Daniels. He's been doing some great things in his state, but frankly, there might be someone that we don't know yet.
All right, Leader Armey, Matt
Thank you,
Kibbe,
ma'am.
thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
and congratulations on the book. And we should point out to our viewers that 100% of the proceeds go to FreedomWorks. Thank you both so much for joining us. It's always great to see you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.